Hi, guys. Welcome to Podcast 725. If you don't know already, we do every 25 podcasts, because we do about 100 a year. We do a live stream right here on Test Drive Videos. So thank you for joining us. And all of those 25 podcasts are question only. Now, the weird one is the 50 interval. That's the no cars.
That's all the questions besides cars.
That's madness every single time. But this one will be all kinds of car questions, a few others. We're also going to cover some questions from many of you that are our patrons that posted for the 15-year anniversary video, and not all those questions got answered. So some more will be answered tonight, though I will still warn you, there's no way we're covering them all.
It's good.
It's going to be cool.
It's a good thing. We've covered the bases. Yes, if you have not seen that 15-year anniversary video, it is currently live on our main YouTube channel. But we asked all of our friends from automotive media to weigh in, to roast us, or just say something nice. And we still can't believe 15 years have gone by. And then we asked on the Discord to our patrons, hey, what were some questions you would like to see covered? We covered a few of them, but we want to get to some of those tonight, in addition to your questions from the live stream. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Great stuff.
Before we jump in, though, I want you to know that there's 6 days left on 3 t-shirts from our friends at BlipShift. Go to blipshift.com, our partner store. That's right, Happiness Ahead and Daily Triple and Car Pay and Diem. It used to be iSpeak Car, so that is still on sale and 6 days left on that. So support BlipShift, and those guys are really good to us. Really appreciate it. So
if it bleeds, you can kill it, by the way. That is
Make
wisdom
sure.
from Arnold.
Make sure you see
By
that.
the way, there's a new Predator prequel called Prey now on Hulu, where they decided, have you heard about this?
No.
Yeah. It's a prequel to Predator. Takes place in the Old West.
Sorry.
I know.
What more movie series can we mine? We can't keep
you.
going, so we'll go backwards in time.
But it now has a female star.
Okay.
Who's Native American. So they checked many boxes were checked. Even though I have to say I do want to watch it. But anyway, so I'm actually going to start with a couple things that are not yet on the new questions you guys are asking. I am going to say, from Waffleopagus, who helps us run our Discord, he says, what is favorite car you've driven in 15 years? It's the impossible question. And it is kind of impossible because there are so many great things. However, I did have this thought, and I know it may seem like a foregone conclusion, but I really have come to this in the last week or so. I really do think my favorite car in 15 years is the Lotus Elise.
Is it?
There's been plenty of great things of which I could list, but every single time I'm in that car, a car I own, every single time I'm in that car, I'm just like, nothing's like this. Nothing is like this.
Yeah.
So, there's many things about it that are sacrificial. Many things about it that are not amazing, but it's just, I never get in that car and I'm over it.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It is your cul-de-sac car. You can never get rid of this. That's what you understand this.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Selling it is not an option for you at this point.
That's become clear, it seems. Yes.
Yeah. I said on the 15-year video, it was that Formula One car that we drove that is owned by our friends at Grillo's Garage. They pulled 3 cars out of their collection for us to create that video. It has aired 2 weeks ago on the Motor Trend cable channel and coming soon to YouTube. Cannot wait to share that episode with you because it was a track day with us and them. And it was a very, very special couple of days to shoot these cars, get in it and experience stuff we've all thought, okay, I know what it drives like. No, you don't. It was so incredible. And so thanks to our Griot sponsor, those guys are amazing and they become genuine friends. We had a podcast with them, episode 699, I believe it was. And we were live in Richard's office with Richard and Nick. And it was just great to talk about cars. And we realized that's just everybody's outlet. This is what we do.
Yeah. We just talk cars.
We just, all the people have this need, and that's why you guys are here. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Great. Am I going to invite my son and wife back on the podcast? Mike asks. My son asks regularly.
Does he?
He's like, Dad, what's another event I can be on the podcast for? I'm like, easy there, big fella. Yeah. And my wife might come back. I mean, we didn't necessarily want to make it an every year thing, every Valentine's, every Father's Day.
Right.
But they both are interested in being on. Thank you guys for the interest. And I think they will be at some point. We'll see. We'll see what the story is on that.
From the 15-year questions off of Discord, Monsoon asks if we think Renault, Alpine, and other French automakers will ever return to the U.S. domestic market. Well, Stellantis has been brought upon the world. We've been blessed with the Stellantarians to bring, hopefully, the PSA cars back, Peugeot, and we'll see. They've made noises about that. Other French cars, we see them when we go to Europe on our pilgrimage trip. We go over there and see, oh yeah, Renaults, that's right. And it's cool. I would love for companies like Alpine, even though they're a subsidiary of Renault, I'd love for them to bring their cars here, but it really comes down to sales and a business model. And everybody seems to be buying SUVs, as you know. So they'd have to really think there is a business case to be able to do that, to be able to make money, because as you know, there's the support system. It's not just selling the cars here, it's the support to, get parts and service. So whether it's electric, whether it's ICE engine, doesn't matter. And I hope, let's put it that way, because the world needs more variety. I'd like that.
For sure. Richard is asking, he said he just rewatched our inspirations piece. Now that was, what episode was that? I'm lost. It was season 10, episode 1, I think. But anyway, it was part of season 10. It's where you drove the Testarossa, which was kind of a poster car for you, and I drove the E-Type, and then we connected that to our current cars of the past, my 300ZX, your 928. And he's asking, now that we've driven them, would we own them? The hero cars, the inspiration cars. And I have to say that I would love to own an E-Type. I really, really would. There's a couple major problems, besides the fact they're quite expensive, and that's not really in the reality. I am aware of the fact that I am not a wrencher. That's not where I want to put my time. It's not where I have skill. And older cars take a lot more care. So I'm not going to be working on it myself. So who am I paying to work on it? That scares me about an E-Type. The secondary thing is I would instantly have to modify it because I am too big for the car in stock configuration. So now I have two things that instantly make me go, I really want one, but do I want to own one?
That's a different level right there.
Yes, I would love to. I don't know. I also have come to the realization, and our cars of the past has kind of helped me with this, even though I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and the 300ZXs run really well. I've come to the realization that I'm not a guy that wants to own a project.
Okay.
And I'm not a guy that really wants to own a really old car.
Okay.
Now, the 300ZX is, you can look at it two ways. On one level, not that old. On another level, it's old.
Yeah, it's oldish.
So I always have that kind of awareness. And driving that car, which I thoroughly enjoy, I keep thinking, this may be the outer limits for me on old cars. So you jump another 30 years back to an E-Type, which I think is really sexy and incredible to drive. But do I want to own that? That's a struggle. That's a genuine struggle.
Takes money and time and effort. And I think of Testarossas, all those older Ferraris, and you think, I would never own those because you have to take the engine out. Hi, 928 owner here.
Yeah, you are.
Kind of been there, done that. And I would love to have a Ferrari, but the engine out by a really trained factory service tech, somebody who really knows what they're doing, for a flat 12 engine, that scares the daylights out of me. The bill scares the daylights out of me. I'm experiencing at a medium to low level as far as old car ownership is concerned. It's not the classics, the Jags, the old Ferraris, that kind of thing.
But you're still experiencing plenty of scare. I think, honestly,
already done the engine out here.
Honestly, in about 6 months or a year, we need to be back on Matt Farah's podcast. Hi, Matt, by the way. And we need to, I want to sit there quietly, which is hard for me, and have you and Matt compare war wounds on your old cars that you bought.
I've got wounds, but he's paying the bills.
His
he's paying the money.
is just staggering right now. So that's really amazing. Yeah,
man. Let's see questions. I'm going to jump over here to the stream here. Chris Newman, our friend Chris up in Montana, asks if you can mod a car into preciousness.
Yes.
I think you can. I think you can drive it eventually and then do so much to it. And I think it has more to do with cosmetics than mechanics, because I'm still sorting out the 928 as of this moment. It's getting Bilsteins and a new air conditioner system, because you can't just recharge an old air conditioner. You either have to convert, but then you have to do all the new seals, because 40-year-old seals on an air conditioner is really questionable. So that is happening, which I'm excited for our upcoming cars of the past three, trip number three. And past that, if I start doing too much cosmetically, restoring the dash, all the stuff, even though it's still got a lot of miles on it and we're driving these cars and that's what they're built for, I think you can. I think the answer is yes. And then it's got all the miles we'll ever do. I've done the road trips and now I've got it sorted. Don't do anything else. I think that would be the wrong move for me. I need to keep driving it, keep it maintained. And that just means keep pouring the dollars into it.
Did you see that Matt asked exactly the follow-up I knew someone would ask when I mentioned old cars and loving my Lotus? He said, what happens when the Lotus becomes old? Matt, I hear you, and you may be right, but I will say this, though. The Lotus is modern enough that it's OBD2 and it has fuel injection and that kind of stuff, things that the old Jag lacks.
It's true.
But it is is simpler, even though it's newer. It is simpler than the 300ZX. There's no power steering. It's pretty much just a Toyota engine on a chassis. It is about as simple as a car can get.
That's true.
So stuff that can go wrong in that car is minimal, and I have had a surprisingly good ownership experience. So hopefully it will survive.
Ian Dare's got a watch question. We haven't had watch questions for a long time. Go ahead and tune out and let your eyes glaze over.
Questions here. It's
not watches.
Yeah.
He's got a question for me about watches designed for a specific car, such as JLC's Aston Martin DBS watch, the Citizen Nissan Z watch, which you would like, even though don't wear watches. Chris Ward's Morgan watch. Are these gimmicky or a cool tribute? I think a bit of both, and it kind of depends. I have really gravitated towards movements rather than style, even though style is still very important. Hopefully that goes along with movement, but you have to decide what you're going for as far as what you're spending your money on. There's 3 categories: style only, movement only, or both. And when you go for both, that's when watches start to get really expensive. But good news, there are a variety of not knockoffs, but sort of tribute watches to certain styles that are, the long lasting, the Omegas, the Rolexes, that kind of thing. And what I want a watch that isn't just something off the shelf with a logo on it and sells for $50. That to me cheapens the brand. Ferrari does a lot of this, but if it's designed for the car, designed for the brand, or designed in conjunction with it, then a movement is chosen, a style is chosen, and that makes it ever more special. The problem is that can very easily get to only the owners of these cars can afford them.
D says, at what age do you leave Civic Si and step into the Integra 6-speed manual? We've said this before. We talked about the Fiesta ST once for a lawyer that was like, should I drive? I'm in my 30s, almost 40. Should I drive a Fiesta ST? And one of you wrote in with one of the lava orange Fiesta STs in your 70s and said, I daily drive this. Age is not related to which car you should own. And I actually think, and we haven't driven the Integra yet, but I actually think the Civic Si is so good, I question, and I will admit this bias, going into the Integra review, I question, is the step up worth it? And that's going to be the big question for me when we do drive the Integra, because the Civic Si is really good. And I do not think, I don't think that it has an age cap on it at all.
Dartman, you've got a question here about recalls on brand new cars. There's so many major recalls going on. The question is, are new models being developed and brought to market too quickly in order to stay competitive? Too many new and unproven technologies into cars, loaded into cars all at once. You're right. That is a thing. The development of a car has been sped up so dramatically over the past decade, I'll say. A couple of decades, but definitely within the last 10 years, not just from a design and styling, but from a visualization point of view, and engineering can go so quickly now. I mean, 18 months used to be unheard of. It used to be 3 to 4 years to develop a car. And now technology is changing so quickly, and car manufacturers want to get their products out there so quickly. You're right. They're running into this, but we don't want them to not try. If there's car manufacturers that aren't doing this and taking advantage of new manufacturing methods or putting new tech or developing it and saying, all right, we've tested this as much as possible. It hasn't let us down. We're calling it good for our standards, for our company. Great example is Toyota putting that BMW engine that's in the Supra. We've been told that BMW engine has been through all of Toyota's engine requirements. That's why they put it in those cars and sold them as branded Toyota products.
I think BMW is just an engine showroom. Other manufacturers come in and walk along, pick an engine. I actually think the BMW designers and engineers go,
you're not wrong.
That one, let's put that one in something.
You're not wrong. But once all those components pass what their checklists say, then okay, they should be able to confidently put them in there. Ultimately, car manufacturers don't want these recalls. They're treading a fine line here because they want to get new tech. They want to take advantage of, like I said, new manufacturing methods, get the cars out there, get what people are wanting. But cars are not phones. Cars are not laptops. And I think the general public expects that now, especially with how quickly electric cars are moving and electrification.
Well, yes,
that's all moving so fast. We expect the new model within a year and a half. That is almost unheard of.
It's crazy fast. And here's the other thing that's happening that Tesla's getting away with, and I'm wondering if it's going to happen with electric cars in general to some point. And that is, Tesla has gotten away with, but it's okay that it broke because it's beta.
Yeah.
And when we have a technology that is not an old technology, like an internal combustion engine car, we just kind of accept, to some degree, we accept little bugs because, oh, it's cutting edge and new. And I'm wondering if electric cars are going to be, because they can do software updates and that kind of thing, are we going to be more forgiving across the board on electrics, or is that just a Tesla thing? But we expect traditional cars to just run and to not have failures, but yet we're doing a blind eye thing to electric cars, or even your phone does some weird thing. You're like, oh, it must be a software glitch. And you kind of, you don't like it, but you're like, oh, it just happens.
So if cars become like phones, your phone enclosure doesn't change. It operates how it operates. Everything is internally done. Tesla Model S's are well over 10 years old.
I know. Yeah.
As far as the door stampings and the roof stamping and the body panels haven't changed. They've done the refresh for the taillights and front and rear clips. Those are low investment. In terms of car manufacturing, those are low investment. So that's an easy thing to update. But what has changed over the years is all the motors, the batteries, the tech. The wiring harnesses were probably pretty similar. You can use still everything, upgrade the interior a little bit, but we've still have the same shape and pretty much the same look for over a decade. That hasn't changed.
True. Yeah.
So if we want the fast to market, here's the latest tech, we have to be okay with the exterior enclosure not changing,
leaving it still because it works, and don't break it. I see that. Yeah.
I've got a story for you.
Uh-oh.
And that is about the Crown Victoria and Mercury Grand Marquis.
Yeah.
Remember these cars, taxis, cop cars.
Yes, they were around forever.
Endless. They were around so long. I had a friend from Ford, worked for Autodesk and helped out the Ford engineering studio. He said the tooling on those cars had been around so long, there was slop in the tooling because the tooling was worn out.
Sure.
And new cars went together with kind of loose body panels because they had used it and made so many of those cars. There were bits and pieces on new ones that didn't quite align properly because the tooling was so old. I went, are you kidding me? But it wasn't worth Ford's time and money to build new tooling because they were going to phase those cars out anyway. So it didn't behoove them to make new tooling to keep an old model going. They just kept making them. Like, unbelievable.
M. Simmons AZ is trying to catch me out. He says, Todd, which car looks best in white? And I have one.
Okay.
The original BMW i8 was first shown in white with some like 2-color blue-red accents. It was the other 2 colors. It was the colors from their M line, the 2 shades of blue and the red. But it was a white car with black. All the swoops were all black, so it's like Stormtrooper spec with the blue and red accents on it. And I've never seen that car look better than it did in that white spec. And every time I see one of them, I'm just like, that just looks right like that. As much as I hate white, granted, it's got a lot of negative space on it, which balances it out. But that's by far my favorite.
Okay, I'll give that to you. Our friend Hal Bullock asks about a new vehicle. He's taking delivery of a new vehicle end of September. What is the first wash protocol or procedure we would advise? Definitely ask your dealership to not wash it, because part of the prep is to just get it clean. And they don't really care about getting it clean to good standards, let's say. They just want to get it clean and out the door, and it's part of the checklist as far as delivery is concerned. My first recommendation, if you allow them to pull the plastic off and do that, please tell them to not wash it. Take it home, wash it with Griot's products. You can do the foam cannon to start with, or you can just give it a nice wash with their car wash soap. So that way you're not introducing scratches first thing. Yeah, do it yourself first thing for first wash, and then ease into a washing schedule.
Ray Lee is saying he's glad he met us at Redwood. Glad to meet you too, man. And it was cool that your M5 got to be in that East Coast piece. I'm glad we had at least a quick shot of it. But he's asking me, is my Elise just a faster version of his MR2 Spider, or are they different? Because he has the Elise engine in his MR2. This is where this is going. They are different because the Elise has a significantly lower seating position, and it's very different visually. And it feels more exotic than the MR2. The MR2 has a very mundane seating position by comparison. And now, granted, my shifter's been a little bit changed. I've got different cabling and different engine mounts, which helps the shift feel in that Elise. But the shifter is actually a lot better in the Elise as well. So it does have a more exotic feel. Even I'm not denying the cheap version of getting an Elise is you do the MR2 with the engine swap. And I see how you get there, and it is still really, and I love driving it. But the Elise has a specialness and a because of the seating position, it has an exotic feel that the MR2 can't quite get there.
Question on here. I'm looking for it's going back up about Porsche and Red Bull joining forces into Formula One. We've touched on this a little bit before, but you realize that Red Bull has bought the remnants of the Honda engine program and started a different company using that technology called Red Bull Engines. So they already build their own engines. They are a manufacturer, if you can believe it. It's all the leftovers of Honda, but that's still great stuff. And so now clearly they're doing well. But now they have so much money for Porsche to join. Porsche can offer a lot of racing technology and a lot of experience. I'm excited for Porsche to be back in the top level of racing. Not that Le Mans isn't. I would love them to continue in Le Mans. They seem to dip a toe into the pool, and they've got the winning car, and they know it. And we'll just grab a few championships and then kind of hang out.
We're here for trophies, and then we're leaving. Okay,
much.
yeah, that's really
we'll
all.
Just do 3 years in a row and grab all the trophies again, and then you
Yeah.
guys can screw around, and then we'll be back in.
Our guys just built a new Porsche designed trophy case, and it's empty. So we got to fill that, and then we'll leave. Yeah, there's a lot of questions from the 15-year anniversary. Thank you guys for that. I still can't believe 15 years. We are here in the second week of August, and
starting our 16th year.
It was crazy. No, it was July 31st, 2007. We posted a Mazda Speed Miata review, and we were fully split on it. So it has been that long, which is crazy. So there are a lot of questions related to that. I want to come through a few more. ZZ01 is saying, what do we think? And I'm curious your thoughts on this, Paul. What do we think are the best personal traits to develop in order to have a successful media show or car media show or whatever? What do we think are the key elements, traits, or behaviors that turn a couple of guys making videos on the side into a full-time gig? Here's the thing I learned in Hollywood. I came into Hollywood, I think a lot of people do, came into Hollywood thinking that if somebody else had an opportunity, they took my slot, which isn't true. I also came into Hollywood thinking that there was a line. There's not a line. Well, the people in line, but people cut. So your experience and your time frame will be completely different than anybody else's success in anything, but especially in anything that is an entertainment medium. But the other thing that it taught me that I think is true of us, and that is it's a war of attrition. It's not you're the best, you're the brightest, you're the latest one to show up. It's you stayed in it and you fought. And you and I, here we are, 725 podcasts. If you'd pulled either one of us aside and said, you guys are going to do 700 podcasts, I think we wouldn't have done one. Okay, we've been like, no. We're
going to do what?
No, but and the reason we have so many is because we just dedicated ourselves to, started off once a week, twice a week. We find the time. It's why you guys have heard podcasts that we've done in the middle of road trips or in the middle of shooting, because we just dedicated ourselves to, twice a week we're doing a podcast. And then you look back over the years and you go, oh my gosh, we did that much. That's true of the videos and the TV stuff and that kind of thing. And so I'm always playing the long game, and I think that's helped. And then because I just it's not about this one piece. It's about all of the body of work.
Yeah.
So, and that's something else I learned in scripts, because you'd write a script and you'd kill yourself. And I think this is really good, and the script would fall on its face. And the only thing you can do is, not whine about the fact that one failed. You got to write another one.
Well, aren't there scripts out there that are introduced and then they're revised and then they try to reshop them, and years later, and
sometimes
it didn't really fit the common perception or what companies were looking for, what studios were looking for, and then
they pull them out of turnaround, resurrect them. That has happened for sure. And the other thing, I think, from a personal perspective, it's this weird line, because you can swing either side of this line. It's this weird line of listening to the audience, but also not letting the audience define who you are, which is a weird thing, because there's a symbiotic thing going on. I was just reading an article about how some influencers just become what their audience wants to be. I think you have to know who you are and stick to that, but also be willing to adapt in order to entertain. There's both elements. You can't be like, whatever you want me to be. But at the same time, I keep coming back to scripts. If 10 people read a script and 7 of them think this thing is wrong, you got to go fix that thing. But what you don't do is you don't listen to what everybody else thinks the fix is. You identified, the audience identified for you the problem. Now it's on you as the creative person to find the fix.
We've also touched on this before, and that is a comment that we get from people who meet us in person and say, you guys are exactly like you are in person as I see you on camera, which is so surprising to both Todd and I, because I have never wanted to be that person that is, there's plenty of YouTubers who are,
hey, sorry, couldn't resist.
that do that.
Yeah.
And then aren't the same person when you meet them in person. They're just kind of low key and whatever, cool, man. And then on camera, they're this different personality, wild and crazy, whatever. You know what I mean? because from the very beginning, this was Todd's face, it was my face, it was our names, it was a body of work, and we looked at it as evergreen content, which has always stuck with me, because we see videos with comments now, and I'm like, oh yeah, we drove that car. I totally forgot. What did I say about that car?
Yeah, for sure.
Do I still agree with myself now? And we get comments on that. So hopefully that is long lasting, because cars last a long time. You keep them running. They're still being shopped by people now and still finding those reviews. And we want those reviews and what our opinions were about them to be valid now as they were then, and give a long-term, and we're still the same people. But it's always surprising to me. Like, you guys just are pretty much the same as I've seen you. Like, I don't know how else how to be.
Yeah, I don't know another way to be. I agree with that. Skylar's doing a super chat. Thank you for that, man. He's saying, what's the worst hotel we've stayed in during a road trip? He said he actually walked out of a booking once losing his money. Worst hotel? That's actually a good question. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're done shooting and I'm just tired. I don't know that there's ever one we've left.
We're so tired. It's
like, whatever.
Does the key work?
There was one when I first moved to Utah. It wasn't even on a shoot. When I first moved to Utah, we were driving, and everything about the day, with the rental truck and everything, everything went longer than it should have. Everything took longer than it was supposed to. It was all disastrous. And I had our old dog Sierra with us, and we were moving, and we were trying to find a hotel where it was okay that we had her, and we just needed to crash. It was like midnight, and we had trucks, and the hotel was nasty. And we were all like, and I don't care. I do remember that hotel. It was like, oh, this is, okay. We're just going to sleep for a few hours and be up and moving again.
You had a good time with your family at Circus when you went through, and
that was not that we didn't stay there.
That was for the
we didn't stay there. That was a whole separate thing. Yeah.
Cheap Vegas hotels is
let's not do
place to go. Let's see. R Diamond asks if some cars are more approachable than others. In the 4 months he's owned the Stinger, he's had a dozen people approach him to talk about the car. Same with the GR86 he rented, but no comments on the Genesis. I think so, because there is a public perception about certain cars. Hopefully those are broken. Stereotypes are broken once you talk to the owner, and ideally Porsches, but about the thing about Porsches. However, with these two cars, nobody really has an idea of what to think about them yet, and doesn't know who are the people that own them. They look cool. They look interesting and fun. Who's the driver? I just want to kind of know who bought this thing. What do they get out of this car that I think is interesting for a myriad of reasons? So I think, and those two are kind of new. They don't have a legacy like Porsche 911s, like Corvettes, like BMWs. They don't have this long-term thing where I know I see a car and I know exactly who that owner is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a different driver.
That's a Kia. Oh, wait, what is that? What is that bright blue car? That's a GR. What's a GR? Yeah, we definitely get that for sure.
Agreed.
Chuma is asking. He's not asking. He's stating. Dun, dun, dun. Chuma is saying, fully autonomous consumer cars will not happen in our lifetime. What do we say? I think they will, but I think they're going to be geofenced.
In cities, in downtowns.
You're not going to have a fully autonomous car that you could go anywhere in.
I agree to that.
They're going to build them that they're really good in certain areas, which is what makes sense too. I mean, sorry, side note, what really makes sense is just public transit. That's if we really want to solve like city, it's public transit.
Kind of exists.
We as car people don't want to do, and many people that aren't car people don't want to do. But if we're going to be talking about individual pods taking you places, it makes sense that in a cityscape, they're all interconnected and talking to each other, and watch Minority Report for other reasons, but for that as well. I think cities, yes. But even, I would even say this, I could see a world where your autonomous car in the city can't be autonomous out of it. Your steering wheel pops out because you're out of the geofence. You want to keep driving this vehicle, you have to drive it.
Till some YouTuber puts a Hellcat in that bad boy.
Yeah, well,
then we're going to drag race it against the world.
Of course we are.
Without a steering wheel.
What's YouTube like in another 15 years? Matt Farah theorized it might not even exist, but what's it like another 15 years? That'll be fascinating.
That is interesting. I have experienced it. It's amazing technology, but I think you're right. I don't think anywhere from point to point, address to address, level 5 autonomy will happen any place on the planet. I think you're absolutely right.
Remember a few years ago, one of the many things that he promised, Elon Musk was going to do a fully autonomous drive. Like this was like 2019. I can't, he's going to go LA to New York. I don't even think that's possible. I don't even think that's likely, but I do think in major cities, I think it actually makes some sense.
Let's see. Moose just watched our S580 review. It seems like Mercedes took a step back in design by making the tablet on the dash design compared to the last generation with the integrated design. Why the step back? Perception. People have now associated the future with Teslas, even though that's not true anymore. And there's car companies that are doing better screens than just a tablet stuck on the dash. That seems so old now. It's 10 years old.
Yeah.
Idea. But then Mercedes has taken it a step further, Moose, by integrating those screens into a glass panel in the EQS. It's fantastic. It's a different take on things. It's too much information.
Yes.
Yeah, it's completely cool. But they have done it their way, and that does seem very Mercedes. I like it a lot. The Audi e-tron GT, proving you don't need a gigantic screen. We noted on that car, the interior just felt pretty normal, like a modern car. But if you didn't know what the powertrain was, you just think it's a normal car. I think manufacturers have acknowledged it. They've tried their own. Mercedes has done it a little bit, but I think people want instrument panels. I think they want some buttons. Just going to, all the features down in the screen that changes maybe weekly or monthly because they updated the firmware over the air. Change it on you. You can't find the same thing.
Where's the
I don't think that's flying with people, to be honest.
I hear you. I'm Your Chaos One says, any tips for a first-time trip to the Nurburgring? There are many, but I'll give you the headlines. First off, talk to our friends at RSR, rent a car from them. Do not rent some car you've dreamed about driving that is above your current car and rent this high thing and spend your money there. Rent a car at your current level or below your current level and get an instructor. Take the instructor with you. You are much better off doing more laps in a lesser car with an instructor than renting some big boy and seeing how it goes, because I'll tell you how to go poorly.
Let's see. TDFN 426. Who would you have make a once-a-year car feature film, regular weekly video, or 15-second short? The Straight Pipes, or Savage Geese Friends, or Throttle House? Well, we need to kind of incorporate all of them. They did us a really huge favor by sending us their roasts in our video. I think we need to change it up. I think that all of them would be great at everything, but the Savage Geese boys would like to do the longer thing. They're good at the long format.
The long format stuff. They're very good at that for sure. Monty, I don't want to go too long into this because it still hurts, but you're asking if Sierra's still around. Our dog Sierra almost made it to 16.
It's amazing.
She was awesome and clear-eyed the day that we had to let her go, and it was very hard, but it was for the best.
It's rough.
It was hard though.
Rough. Let's see. I'm going to jump back to some of our 15-year questions. Future adventures or trips that we would like to do from Turtle Slayer. We're thinking about a few. Some we can't reveal because they haven't come to fruition yet. And it depends on time and money in some cars.
Yeah.
But we've talked about various generations of supercars, old and new kinds of supercars. We've talked about that as future films. What else? There's still a lot of adventures that we think we can do with different cars. If these two cars of the past cars change over to something new, like an Isuzu Via-Cross and a Subaru Brat, and we do something from north to south through Utah, that could be cool. There's other ideas, but I think there's still some world travel that we want to do with various cars too.
Interesting. So many good questions. I'm going to jump right here real quick. Peter says, why did he like driving the 335 IS more than the M3? I think it's two reasons. One, the 335 IS, you probably didn't expect as much. And the 335 IS has a turbo, whereas the M3, which has that glorious V8, you got to wind it out to make it glorious. If you drive it in the mid-range, it's just like, well, this car's okay. The 335 IS has power a lot of the time and is a real surprise, whereas the M3 you expect to be the big boy. I think that's the reason that you felt the other way.
Pininfarina Idealist asks about the factors that combine to make both of us realize that we could or had to do Everyday Driver as our full-time jobs. Todd, what was the discussion like with your wife? I do want to hear this. I knew it was the tipping point because for both of us, every time the show would come up, we couldn't stop talking about it. And people we were talking to noticed it. You were working, doing some commercial editing.
Yeah, for sure.
I was in a tech company with Autodesk. And every time the show would come up, people would sort of take a step back like, whoa, I haven't heard that much enthusiasm from you.
Totally.
It's not about the company you're currently working for. It's about this side gig
about
that
something
you keep
else.
blabbing about, and you have some YouTube channel, and now you're starting a podcast, and you drive cars and that's making you money, and you can earn a living doing this. So when too many people started doing that and my tech company moved on from me, I decided, you know what? If I get another job, if I'm buried in a tech job, you know, you're doing film editing or we're buried in that, and we couldn't devote the actual time that we talked about to devote to the show. Because we'd always say, well, if only we had this amount of time to go take a week off and it wasn't vacation time, we just reported to nobody and we could go film and not be bothered and do our thing. I wonder what that would be like. And here we're doing it with the cars, the past road trips.
It's crazy that we get to do it for a living. I kind of can't believe it. To answer your question, how was the conversation with my wife? She actually mentioned earlier when somebody said she'd be back on the podcast, she was like, yeah, I'm game. So she's watching, so I have to be careful. No, I'm kidding. I have had 2 major transitions in my work life in the time we've been married. And she has been incredibly supportive of both, mainly because she has to live with me. And in both cases, she could see the stress level and she could understand that even though the jump was hard, the person she was married to and living with would be better served by that jump. And therefore, her life would be better as well. I mean, when we actually jumped, I actually left Cosmic, the place that I was editing for, which I didn't have any problems with. It was a good job. But it was because we saw the TV show coming and we saw the sponsorship coming. And so we had the ability to take that step. Now, that was a bigger step than my prior jump out of New Line, where we didn't have a son and we didn't have a mortgage and that kind of stuff. But she could see how much I was working around the clock between going to a full-time job and then we were shooting on the weekends and I was editing at night. And so she could understand how a lot of the time would come back. And even though it was genuinely very scary for us, but she was like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, but for what we do with the show, there's never something not to do. It's constant. It's ongoing, whether to get a video published, late at night, getting podcasts edited, getting test drive videos done, Todd staying late, and, you know, holidays being affected, your holidays through Christmas, you know, because of the TV seasons. There's always stuff to do, but I think we've embraced it because this is fun. This is what we get to do. And our audience has come alongside us and said, guys, keep making this stuff, keep doing what you're doing. And that's very encouraging, regardless of the amount of YouTube views we get or don't get. It doesn't matter, but there's a deep passion for it that people noted, and it keeps going at this point.
Very true. And the other thing that actually, this is going to sound weird because we've been doing this for so long, but I started noting this and bringing it up during our shoots in the last 6 months, maybe year. And that is, I started noting the fact that I have never had a job where I've laughed so much.
That's good.
You and I laugh when we do the podcast. We laugh on every single shoot. We just laugh doing it. There's plenty of high stress, late night moments in editorial. But when we're doing production for the show, be it the podcast or otherwise, there's just some ridiculous moment where we can't get anything done. We're just laughing.
Well, a lot of times.
I'm trying to think about any other job I had where that ever happened, ever.
That's true. When Chance is editing, he's pulling selects and editing interview. And he'll take a screenshot. Be like, you guys
are idiots.
Or you're having too much fun. Or what noise was that just came out of your mouth? Look at this clip. And we're all laughing via text. And it's stuff that, you know, it's behind the scenes kind of things. But we're like, oh, yeah, I guess that is me. I guess I did kind of say that.
Well, and you and I do that thing that you do when you cram for a test, okay? We take in so much information before we actually go on camera that there is, to some degree, there's like a flushing of that when we're done on camera. And so then we get into edit and we've forgotten some of the things we said. We'll come across something and be like, oh my gosh, I said that.
That's clearly me.
Okay, that's going in, or that's really never going in. Both happen for sure,
Off the 15-year questions, Gomper asks about the experience that we've gained in the last 15 years. Which cars have we significantly changed our opinions about? Other than Maserati.
I was going to say, there's an obvious one there.
I'm a fair weather fan. I'm a full-on fan.
You're a full-on fan now,
Except for the Levante. What's the new one called? I forget the new one, brand new mini SUV that's in the Con Fighter.
It's a blind spot in my life.
There. I think that's interesting. I'd like to drive it. The MC20 is something I feel like I need.
Oh, you need. Okay, good to know. Excellent. I'm not sure how we afford that, but excellent. Good.
However, Mercedes is a car company that I ignored. And early on, we got a lot of comments. Why don't you guys review more Mercedes-Benzes? Because 10 years ago, it was part of the decade just prior when, you know, the aughts, when I didn't think very much of Mercedes. They were fine, but they just were a symbol. They were a badge for people with money, and you go buy a Mercedes and it's just fine. And then they started to get really interesting. And one of the few that we drove that had that new MBUX system, it was well laid out, very thoughtful. I thought the build quality was excellent. They drove well. I just had this perception of Mercedes that was always like kind of middling, boring. They're well built and you're buying it for the TriStar badge. And I think what Mercedes is doing, I think they have a huge future. I mean, they're a big car company. They have a lot of resources. But I love the direction Mercedes is going, and yet they still don't build manual transmissions, except for old 2006 SLK
those
280s that are really great, but and the 350s. But Mercedes, they're just cool. I'm intrigued by Mercedes. The design is timeless versus BMW. BMW is designing with line connected by surface. It's almost like designing with B-splines or surfacing, nerding out on
You're nerding out. Well done.
Surfacing technology, surfacing, A-class surfacing. But Mercedes is designing with highlights and surface and form, and they're beautiful. The GTSs are going to be beautiful.
They're gorgeous. They're going to be timeless.
50 years from now.
They're going to look great.
Wow. Yeah. Surfaces that are modern, that are, I think, just as beautiful, not quite, but almost as that Jaguar E-Type. And
it'll be timeless
Ferraris,
in that sense.
the old 50s Ferraris. They're gorgeous surfaces, and they're continuing to do that and bring interesting fascias to denote here's electric, here's gas powered, here's what they're doing. I'm really intrigued by Mercedes.
I'll give you two pairs. One is when we first started the show, Cadillac was on a roll and Lincoln was in the dumps.
That's right.
Okay. Lincoln had nothing. Our joke about Lincoln was Lincoln, nothing to see here. I mean, that was the tagline.
The joke was because we were at an auto show. I think it was the LA Auto Show.
Yes.
And on the media preview day, everybody had displayed all their cars except for Lincoln. And we walked by the pavilion and they had rented a huge floor space.
Yeah.
And we're just going, where are all the Lincolns? Like, this is media day. You should have some product out there for people to look at. There's nothing.
And so Cadillac and Lincoln have kind of swapped personalities. And Cadillac is then doing a whole nother resurgent sense, but they kind of swap personalities. And Lincoln, if you want to buy an SUV, has actually found their own identity over the course of this show. It's not my taste, but they found their own identity. Meanwhile, when we started this show, Ford was the enthusiast company. They had an enthusiast car at every possible price point come to Ford. They don't do it anymore, but you know who does? And at the time was the exact opposite. Toyota now does.
Yeah.
Toyota was like, go buy a Prius or a Camry. Thank you very much. Ford had all the enthusiast cars. Now Ford doesn't even sell any enthusiast cars. And Toyota's like, what's your price point, sir? Can I find you an enthusiast car?
That's true.
Who knew?
Although Cadillac has split again.
Yes.
If you haven't looked up the Escalade V, I dare you to go to the website and look at the V series.
Yourself.
They start at $150,000. Start. And they get 10 miles to the gallon.
Mercedes GLS money there.
And then there's the Lyric over here. Like, this is the direction we're going. Would you like a Blackwing anything with a 10 miles to the gallon kind of engine? Here you go. Here's two offerings.
Angel Rivera says, as a super chat, thank you, man. He says, favorite high-speed commuter with a stick shift. That's hard. Because when I think high-speed commuter, I think like big sedan.
Okay.
So now I wonder if it's like Aston Martin Vantage
with a stick, right?
Yeah, maybe. Because what I want to think is like a big sedan, but those will typically come in stick shift. So I'm going to go with the Vantage. That one I'm a little bit about. What about a highway EV commuter? What's favorites there? I have not yet driven the Lucid, but granted, you're putting a price on it of up to $55K, so that's not going to be a Lucid.
Okay.
Okay. Highway commuter. You know what? The Bolt is much better than people think it is. I'm going to come back to the Bolt. The Bolt is excellent. The Lyric actually was 65 grand loaded and felt like it should have been 80 or 90. That shocked us, which actually makes me think that the Blazer, of all things, might be interesting in EV form, even though I wish that every EV on the planet was an SUV, but that has promise as well. But the Bolt you can get a deal on and is an excellent car for commuting.
If you haven't seen Dan Neal's review of the new Bolt EV, he is the only Pulitzer Prize winning automotive journalist that I know of. He writes for Wall Street Journal. He just reviewed it and he was freaking hilarious, as he always is. But he was sort of referencing the old Bolt, like GM's kind of freaking out about the 2 years of battery fires and we did it differently and please buy our new Bolt. It was really well written, but I always laugh when he gets a hold of cars. Doesn't matter. I mean, he'll drive McLarens and then he'll drive the Bolt EV. But yeah, he had good things to say. So we need to drive that soon.
Oh, man. Has there been a moment, Austin, has there been a moment throughout the years where working in the car industry made you lose your interest in cars? How'd you deal with that and adjust your program to combat that? Austin, this happened to me with movies. I got so burned out on films that when I stepped out of New Line in 07, 08, I cut back my movie consumption to like a 1/10 of what it had been. And it took me a while to kind of work my way back to loving film again. And the interesting thing is here, we're in a plague of everything is a silver SUV. So what the challenge has been for you and I on test drives is what makes this one unique, different, surprising, good or bad. So because in its shape, it's just a silver SUV, but it has made the really good cars, the really good sports cars especially, even more celebratory.
Yeah.
The struggle that I have had actually has been the YouTube ecosystem has probably burned me out on cars more than anything. But the cars themselves, I understand what the SUVs are for, and we drive them kind of with that headspace. But then things like the 86 show up, or the Super show up, or the new Z show up, and you just go, really? Now you're dropping this now? And that's, I mean, you got to have a party because I can't believe it exists.
Elliot Manning, thank you. It is the Maserati Grecale.
That sounds worth
it.
That sounds worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the name, but I have to see something in writing. I'm a visual guy, so I can't just hear it. Thank you. That's excellent. I'm intrigued by it. I want to drive it. I want to drive more Maseratis. I hope they kind of branch off and continue to do their own thing. I hope they're hitting the reset button.
over and over and over. No, anyway, Shadow Blue on the 15-year questions from our patrons. By the way, how this worked is the people that are our patrons on Patreon are all on our Discord chat, which is amazing. It's this whole ecosystem unto itself that is wonderful. People have found friends on there. They've done meetups that have nothing to do with us. It's really, really cool on our Discord. We went to those folks when we were shooting our 15-year video. I thought you and I shouldn't just stand there and do a 15-year anniversary video where we pontificate about what struck us. We did an intro and an outro, and everything in the middle is we're actually answering questions posted by our patrons, which was really cool. We had so many questions. We didn't get to all of them. Shadow Blue is saying, is there one thing you would have done differently, and given the chance, would you go back and change it? Yes. And I mentioned this and it didn't make the cut for the YouTube video, but there was one thing, and that was when we first, you can go back and watch when we announced our TV. The idea was we were going to do 12 episodes a year for TV, which we're still doing. And then we were going to, after they played on TV, we were going to use them as YouTube content shortly thereafter. Okay, was the intention. But when we first got the show on television, we had a couple of people in TV sales advise us to not do that because they were going to sell the show internationally. So we held on to our first couple of seasons and didn't put them on YouTube because we were supposedly going to get them sold internationally, which never happened. So then we were like 18 months, 2 years behind on dropping these TV episodes onto YouTube. I wish we had stayed with our initial plan. I think it would have helped our YouTube cadence. We've been on the same trajectory for 15 years, no matter what we've done, good or bad. So probably wouldn't have changed anything massive, but I would have liked to have stayed in that cadence because when we started catching up, people were like, this is old content. We're like, I know, it's just, this is our chance to get it out. Now we're actually in a fairly good cadence. So I'm glad with where we are.
And just think, YouTube won't exist in 15 years. So we'll be doing this on some other new platform.
What's funny is that every couple of years, some venture capital group gets together and goes, we've made the new YouTube. No, you haven't. We're going to break you. No, you're not.
Same thing with Tesla.
Nope.
This is the new Tesla. We're going to beat Tesla at their own game. And no, you're not. That's not going to happen. Hal says, Paul, I've heard Todd talk to everyone at gas stations about his Z and Lotus. He experiences the same thing with his Fiat X19. Such a tiny car.
Yeah, and very rare.
His question is, do I get people talking to me about the 928? I would like it more if they did, I suppose, but I think I've seen people glancing at it, but I'm not there to, stand by the car and wait, like, want to know anything about my car? I'm here to answer questions. Anybody?
Now taking 928 questions.
I think, I don't know, maybe it's the Porsche perception, like, it's a Porsche, whatever, but who knows?
You never see those on the road. That is one of the crazy things about the 928 is you just never see them on the road. And I'm just glad when we do these road trips that you've got yours out there driving.
I agree, except my mechanic who has a bunch of them out front and in the shop, which is such a relief. I can't even tell you. That means he knows how to work on them, and he's selling a few, and he's got stuff on the lifts, other customer cars. So that is good news.
Somebody asked me, I actually thought I noted it, but apparently I didn't. Somebody asked me on the 15-year thing, favorite Monty Python scene, because we had a Monty Python reference on our East Coast thing. And it's actually, this is going to sound crazy, it's actually out of Holy Grail, and it's the Dark Knight scene. The You Shall Not Pass.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's crazy is I was in a film class in university. I was in a film class, and we were asked to bring in favorite scenes and break them down. And a guy brought that scene in.
Really?
And I was like, the Black Knight scene from Monty, you've got to be kidding. Why? But what was interesting is, if you start watching it from a filmmaking perspective, it's really well done. It's very well shot. Those guys, of course, stay in character, but it's very well shot. There's a lot of information in that scene, in spite of the fact that it is completely over the top absurd. It's very well made and is ridiculously funny. I feel like it's the merge of what those guys did so well.
So funny. Are you the singing bush? I think this is the singing bush.
Let's assume this is the singing bush. Three Amigos, ladies and gentlemen.
We do
there
this
it is.
a lot, especially with Three Amigos. Let's see what else. Little Danilo saw 944 around his neighborhood. Yeah, 944s. They built a lot of those things. Just
yeah, they did.
Not enough 928s. Let's see. William Shaughnessy, Paul Todd, you are a real class act. The world needs more of your authenticity and positivity. William, thank you. We really appreciate that. Like I said, this is
Cool.
You're getting what you're seeing, and we love
This is who we
sharing.
are, yeah.
You know, early on in the show, we realized that we just wanted our best friend. And many times I was just talking to you in the car.
Absolutely,
with
yeah.
the camera right there. You're just talking to me. And it was like the phone calls we always had, realizing we should turn this into a show. We're spending an hour just blabbing about cars.
Time to do a podcast.
We should just do this. And so it's just one person behind that camera. It's not thousands, millions of people. It's just one person. And people have said that matters. And that's what we want.
Barbara, yes, it is just a flesh wound. I totally agree with you. The spam reference is also very good. Thank you guys for the great questions. This is so much fun.
Let's see what else. Will Dixon says, what has been the biggest good surprise about the 86 and the biggest not good surprise? Let's see. The biggest good surprise has been good support from Toyota, the dealership, Mark Miller Toyota in Salt Lake City. And they were able to very easily change the engine speaker. So that it was just a checkbox when they plugged it in. They showed that to us. Very easy. And the car has just been a champ so far. It's got almost 10,000 miles. And it was with us as the camera car out to Radwood, Philly for our Cars the Pass #2 trip. Did great. We've had good tires on it, and people seem to really like seeing it. Also, many people have asked, how was that car on the road trip? And we didn't really cover it for the film because it wasn't the point of the film, but it was a champ. It did great. It was driven by friends of the show. One person drove it out, another person drove it back. So thank you, Derek and Andrew. Both those guys really helped us out on that one. And they really enjoyed getting seat time in that. And it just buzzed along. It was great.
Yeah, I will say, people have asked what it was like. I was in it a little bit because I kept swapping out. When it was camera car, I kept swapping out to be in it a little bit. And I will say this, it was interesting because here I was in the 300ZX with brand new shocks, which had the sport and touring setting.
That worked.
In these great seats. And I realized that the 300ZX was a better long-term road trip car, like sawing miles car, more of a better GT car for sure than the 86. The 86 has got a more aggressive suspension all the time than that 300ZX. Now, look, I drive a Lotus Elise happily, so it didn't bother me, but I was very aware of how much sharper and buzzy the 86 was on its suspension than the 300ZX was for the next 500 miles. So there was that. And the 86, look, it's also a small car that is a sports car. So it is also louder than if you have a Camry or an Accord or your typical commuter. It's a louder car with a stiffer suspension. So if that concerns you on a road trip, the 86 isn't great. But then to your point, it got the best gas mileage of the trip. It was the one we never thought twice about. It absorbed, we threw gear at that car. It had so much space for gear and stuff, and I mean the trunk is good sized. So in all of those regards, it was just like, what is the thing you'd like to do in this car, because it's ready?
When we have road tripped, I have liked this generation much better than the first gen for being on a highway, for being just straight lines, no curves, because I've never thought the first gen was great at the commuter thing. It's begging for a corner. But this one has 5mm longer wheelbase, a lot more sound deadening, and it is better at doing the commute thing, even though the engine is right on the tipping point for me when you're in sixth and you're buzzing along. It depends on your speed, of course, but it can be just maybe a little bit too loud, but then, you back off. Like I said, it depends on the road underneath you, your speed. The engine is not too loud. It's just right in there, but definitely better when you turn the engine noise.
You're reminding me.
Engine noise off.
This week, we have an 86 video coming that is RGR 86, the brand new 2022 BRZ. I have to finish editing this, and the FRS, the prior gen. We actually are having a discussion of those 3 cars for YouTube only. That is coming this Thursday, so please remember that. Also, while I'm giving you reminders of things, season 11 is still happening on Motor Trend. This week is the rerun episode, which is the Bronco and Wrangler. And then we restart the new 6, and those 6 are coming to Amazon and Vimeo. So I'll keep you informed. If you're a patrons at certain level get the Vimeo access for free, which is very cool. That's happening. You already mentioned Blip Shift. We have movies, we have T-shirts. I have a book. I have to do it. We're here. We're doing it. But anyway, moving on.
A couple more questions here. First from Steve Martigani. Steve, thanks for writing in. If your sports car is too loud for highway trips, wear comfy high-end headphones like a rally car. You're right. We both do that in our cars of the past. The 928 is actually loud because the sunroof doesn't quite seal properly. It's not the seal. It's actually the alignment of the roof, and it's like kind of off. And so it creates a lot of wind noise right over your head, which is awesome. So over time, we've gotten into audiobooks, and we're both, you'll see a couple of shots in the second Cars of the Past film. We're both wearing noise canceling headphones, like, just hanging out, covering the miles. And it's a lifesaver.
Completely. Watch my 1,400 miles in 5 days in a Lotus Elise piece with my son last year. We both had noise canceling headphones, and it made the Elise wonderful. Even though, shout out to Justin, I have just put the stock exhaust. He put a different exhaust on his car. He sent me a stock exhaust. Put the stock exhaust back on my Lotus, and I like it more.
Is it quieter?
It is quieter.
You've been driving it a little bit.
It is quieter. The car's loud. There's plenty of wind noise. There's plenty of tire noise. It creaks and rattles. It's still a very loud car.
Screws want to back themselves out.
Hopefully not. But it actually has less of a drone and a little bit, for me, more pleasing exhaust note, because we've all learned every time I did a loud exhaust, I regretted it. So there you go.
Let's see. I've got a question here from Josiah Van Tassel. Josiah's been enjoying the show and podcast for years. Have we ever outdriven the capability of our cars? For example, he was driving quick enough on a road he knows well, and he could feel the suspension not keep up. Absolutely. We've done that not just with tires, but that's why we want to have consistent tires, or consistent enough tires on some of the cars we've driven. That's not always possible before a shoot to get, everything apples to apples. But yes, absolutely. They're cars that feel like they are designed for taking the corner that you know best and taking it at a much higher speed. We'll get done with some of our roads and say, I just did that faster. We've experienced that on track a lot. And on track, of course, is where everything is revealed, because not just engine power, but various cars will get out and say, that was the fastest I've ever done that particular lap time, whatever track we've been on. So absolutely, the answer is yes. And you know it when you take just one corner in a car, you think, oh, that was different. I like that better.
Mark, you're asking, how do you get a signed copy of Paper Father? Thank you for your interest. I did a author Q&A thing when I first released the book, and we allowed signed copies prior to that. Send me an email. We'll see if we can figure it out. We'd have to just put it together. There's not really a procedure for that, but I'm happy to talk it through for sure.
Ahmad A is saying, now that the market is cooling, are there any cars that we're eyeing for personal ownership? I have a 928 that I'm still dumping money into. So okay. There's cars that I've thought about that I've wanted to replace the Cayman, and you've heard me before. I've made noises about selling the Cayman GTS. At this point, I've realized I love it so much. I loved it too much. And when I did my update, just the recent long-term review, if you haven't seen that, that's on the main channel. I really love how it drives, and it's such a great balance. However,
oh, I'm listening. I am listening. This is new. This is new information.
Well, no, it's just has to do with the fact that we went to Germany and we drove some very special cars.
Yes, we did.
Thanks to our friends at RSR Nurburgring, they put us in all of their hot GT Porsches, and that is a film that's coming.
There's lots
on the
of discussion.
road and on track, and it includes the GT4 RS.
That was a day. Yes,
it was a day.
Chuma's asking about updates on our remaining Cars of the Past road trips. We are about to go north to Glacier National Park through Yellowstone. It's going to be a really, really cool trip. There are new fun gags. There are new costumes. We're doing the whole thing again. we're doing that very, very soon. That piece will come out in a couple months.
List. We were trying to think of Yellowstone gags,
Yeah, the problem is that Yellowstone's harder than you think to recreate. Anyway, but
we did get that question one time when we did the Cayman Generations piece, when Yellowstone was still being shot in Utah.
Oh yeah.
A truck driver pulled over and said, "Y'all shooting for Yellowstone?"
That was like With this?
With
What
Porsche
what are you
Caymans?
talking about?
Of course we are.
Yes,
what are you
exactly.
thinking?
Yeah, but so we're doing that. But then we have been debating dates for Texas because South will actually be down to Texas, related to Dakota, and there's a really cool road combination down there, so near Austin. That's going to be November, Chuma. I don't know when in November yet, but we decided we were debating between October and November because of other things on the calendar. We're going to go in November, so we will keep you informed on that. We're planning to do another meetup in Austin when we're down there. That'll be a dinner only, but we're looking forward to it. Our Utah adventure meetup is coming up soon, which is like 25, 26 cars now, fully sold out. It was like sold out, then we added cars, sold out again. Many of you on the wait list. Keep us informed with the wait list as to your interest, because we may actually try to do 2 meetups based in this part of the country next year. We're trying to do a spring one and a fall one. We're hoping, but it's going to depend on interest. We're also working on new and different overseas trips, but we are going to still spearhead a pilgrimage trip next year. We'll have 12 slots available as we did this year, and that was wonderful. I couldn't believe we finally were back.
Well, guys, we'll start to wrap things up. If we haven't gotten to one of your questions, please ask it. We ask for questions on social media on Mondays and Thursdays, usually for release on Tuesdays and Fridays. And we just put it out there. Hey, what's on your mind? Stuff like this. And we really thank you. Quick question or quick shout out to P. Denke saying that he's been a fan since our hot hatch Comparo that featured his current car, the Volvo C30.
That's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. He wishes it was a manual, but back then we had to take what we got, and we still kind of do from a press car standpoint.
And that was one of my favorite roads that when we were done shooting that episode, I said, we're never coming back here. because it's like a lane and a half in a place in LA that's gorgeous, but it's like a lane and a half wide.
Yeah,
it is lots of blind corners. You never know if anybody else is coming. We were like, this is a great road. We will never shoot again. So yeah, I'm glad we survived it. There was one really close call on that shoot. That was early on in our shooting. There was one really close call on that shoot, and maybe kind of go, you know what? No more here. That would be bad.
Oh, Mark, thank you for reminding us. Do we ever wear driving gloves? No, I don't really wear driving gloves, except when it's cold and you don't have a heated steering wheel. Then it's the ski gloves driving because the wheel hasn't warmed up yet, but not generally, unless you're doing a gag, driving a Jaguar E-Type, or you're on camera and you're an actor in a film. Right?
I suppose.
Otherwise, no.
Yeah, we'll see. Man, there's questions are still flying in. Thank you guys. So I'm just reading. Yes, Fobgina. I'm not even going to tell you the reference. I agree with you.
Oh my gosh.
You enjoyed that. We have not driven the i4 yet. We're looking forward to driving that. The electrics have been hard for us because we get cars out of Denver, and we talked this before, the way they have to bring out press cars, they have to give them to us full, if you will. How do you fill an electric car if you drive it basically a day and a half to get it out here as an electric car versus just driving a gas car all the way out here? So having trouble getting electrics. We are probably going to be doing some traveling to get in more electrics, but we do want to drive as many of them as we can. There's so many. The Ranger Raptor, we'll see.
Right.
I don't know if we'll get a Ranger Raptor. There's a bunch of off-roaders that have dropped. We need to drive the Rivian.
Yeah.
We need to drive the Bronco Raptor
Super
R
duper
thingy,
duper.
whatever. We need to drive the new updated Ford F-150 Raptor. We need to drive that.
The Lightning, the EV, Hummer EV, the Silverado EV. It worked out so well for EV to be right in the name. They took advantage of that. Some marketing person really thought
that was their day, and then they went to lunch.
Money
they just
for
thought,
that one.
okay, and I'm out.
Yes. And gosh, the questions keep coming. Yeah, the new G90. Yeah, it just really depends these days what manufacturers get into the press fleets. And of course, that depends on budgets from the manufacturers to get cars, but we're still very much supported by our Denver outlets. And like Todd said, we'll be traveling to various places to get in other cars. And at the same time, start filming on season 12.
Yeah, that's happening soon. That's craziness. I'm going to go here last. I'd love for you to answer this as well, Paul. Cutler Colin off of our Patron said, out of all the cars you've driven in the past 15 years, what car were you most shocked and surprised to be able to drive? As in, oh my gosh, they're letting me drive this. Now, the obvious answer, Colin, is an F1 car.
It is,
because you've got to be kidding. There is no chain of events that my life should lead to that results in I am being strapped in an F1 car that someone else owns.
Yes.
That makes no sense. That was amazing. But I do have to say the original 911 GT3 RS40, the 997, we were early on in the show. That was 2013. We were, only a few years in. We'd never done a feature film. The fact that we got to drive that car boggled me the day it showed up. I could not believe that. So that's definitely on the list. I haven't driven a Pagani Huayra. That hasn't happened yet. The XJ220 Jaguar was on that list.
That was good.
For sure.
You know, early on, it was the Nissan GTR back in 2010.
Press
I
car.
couldn't believe Nissan sent us
Yes.
a high-powered GTR for us to drive, and they went, here you go.
Yeah.
Do good things, do cool things, and say nice things about our car. And we've had a great relationship with Nissan. So thanks again to them for their support. We have a great relationship with all of our car companies, and we really love that. We work hard on that. So we want to drive everything as much as we can. I mean, not all the boring SUVs, but all the cool stuff.
We're going to drive, but we're going to drive. This is what the test drive video channel that you're on is for. It's for the everything. And it's always the two of us in the car together. It's very much like the podcast feel, which is why Wednesdays are now audio from some of those are actually happening. But we have all of the SUVs, everything that they will send us, we will put on that channel. Then of course, the main channel is reserved more for our cars of the past or our special series like the GR86. And then our TV stuff drops there as well. I do want to let you know, we have this 86 video coming up soon. We have the Z versus 86 versus 370 that was just last week's TV episode. That's coming to YouTube soon. We have that Porsche GT film. We have the Cars of the Past series ongoing. We have the M240 coming up. There's stuff.
The F1 episode is coming to YouTube.
It is.
Cannot
it's coming
wait.
as well. Yeah.
And this week, the Toyota Sequoia drops. I realize the embargo has passed and everybody's released their Sequoia videos, but Toyota was kind enough to bring me out to Texas. And Todd was editing. He was buried under digital footage.
Buried under TV stuff.
Drove that, and that'll be for the test drive channel. And a lot of people have asked about it. So that will be coming this week as well. Guys, we really can't thank you enough. We really appreciate it. If we're seeing you on the Utah meetup, we're looking forward to that. But hopefully you can budget for a pilgrimage someday, because this is what we're doing forever. From here on out, I want to go back. I want to do a second one. We need enough people to do a second pilgrimage in the same year. They're driving on track until October and November. They're still doing track days. Paul, would you like to come? I need to go back because the track time on Spa is just, and by the way, when the Formula One season returns, we're on the summer break right now. Guess which track they're coming back to? It's Spa. It's like we were just there.
It's crazy to go and drive Spa. If you have any F1 experience, watching Spa is a near religious experience to drive that track. Also, shout out to David for that really cool shirt. I have to mention that.
Yes,
and then Mazda Man 09 is asking, which hot hatch is better from best to least? Veloster and Focus ST, Mazda Speed 3. I would say Veloster way out front in first, Mazda Speed 3 behind it, and Focus ST last.
Agreed.
I'm answering questions fast now. By the way, you did ask Racing for the Sun. I mentioned it in text, but do we post a podcast to iTunes and everywhere you get podcasts? This podcast is available 3 times a week now.
Yeah.
We don't count the test drive audio toward our tally. Our tally is 2 podcasts a week. Again, this is 725. Come back for 750 because there will be no car discussion. It will be, those questions are always madness. But thank you guys for all the questions, for joining us. This is so much fun to do.
It really is. Big shout out to the professor from Auckland, New Zealand. Thanks for joining. Clearly all over the world. We really appreciate it. Great. We're always looking forward to next time. Thank you guys. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys.